So today's daf yomi is Bava Metzia daf Chavdal. This is the daf yomi for Shabbos Kodesh Erev Purim, and we're going to dedicate this for Shmira for the Chayalim, Hatzalah for the Shvuyim, and Yeshua for Am Yisrael in this day's Tzara. We're going to start on the bottom of Chav Gimel Amud Beis, around 7 lines from the bottom. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar taught that if somebody finds an ampuria, then you don't have to be machers. You don't have to announce it. So what's an ampuria? Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mashmol Kelim Chadashim. These refers to new utensils that shelo siva atan ha'ayin, that the eye has not yet become used to these utensils. Rashi says, Adayin l'chorgol b'riyasan. The eye is not yet used to them. Hey Chidami, what kind of utensil is this? Isbu siman, if there's a mark on it, kilos of asana ayin, mayavi, what do we care if the eye is not used to it? And idolesbu siman, and if there's no mark on it, kisavasana ayin, mayavi, when the eye is used to it, what do we care? There's no sign. So the Gemara says, Lo'olam dolesbu siman. Okay, we're talking about a situation where there's no sign on it. And the distinction is whether or not we return it to a Torah scholar if he recognizes it. So that's the situation. If the Torah scholar recognizes it, we believe him and we return it to him. But if the eye does not recognize it, we don't believe him and we don't return it to him. The Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, how do we know we believe a Torah scholar? Because it says, Bahani Tleis Mili, on these three matters, Avidi Rabbanan de Meshana b'Malayo. There are three things where we know that the rabbis will not say the exact truth, that they'll change the situation. What are these three things? If somebody asks them about what they're learning, then out of humility, they're allowed to say they're not doing so much. Ubepuria, Rashi says this relates to matters of intimacy as it relates to the bedroom. But the Marsha says, no, it relates to the holiday of Purim, that they could claim that they drank, even though they didn't drink, in order to push people off from encouraging them to drink. Uba ushpiza. And the third area is with respect to hosts. They can say that their hosts aren't so great, so that they don't encourage people to go to their host's house because their host maybe wants to break and doesn't want so many people going there. What is the reason why we need to know these areas where the Torah scholar changes their words? Because we need to know whether or not we should return a lost object to the Torah scholar based upon his recognition. If we know the Torah scholar does not change his words, then except if it's in these three areas, then we return it to him. But if he does change his mind, but it's in other matters, then we don't return to him. Marzutra Chasida, because then he's basically established as not telling the truth. Marzutra Chasida, so Marzutra the pious one, Ignevle Kosa de Kaspa Meushpiza. So his host had a silver cup stolen from him. Chazia Lahubar Beirav, Temashiyade Vinagev Bugim de Chavre. So Marzutra the pious one saw that there was a Torah scholar student that was washing his hands and then he was drying them on somebody else's garment. Amar Hainu Hai, he says, this is a thief. The reason is because he clearly doesn't care about his friend's property. So then they caught this guy, and indeed he admitted to the fact that he was a thief. So indeed, Rabbi Shimon Elazar, we learned in the Brisa, he admits that there are new utensils, and if the eye recognizes them, then you need to mention them. You need to make an announcement. What's an example of those new utensils that the eye does not recognize, that you're not required to mention them? You're not required to announce them. Could go on one of these examples. These are the examples are bade mechaten v'tzinoros. These are badim of needles and tsinoros. Tsinoros is like a fork that they use for spinning. And macharozos shel kardomos and strings of axes. These are new kalim that the eye doesn't know. Kol elu sha'amru, and all these things, a masai mutarm, when are they permitted? Bisman shematzan echad echad. If you find them one at a time, of a matzan shnayim, but if you find two of them together, chayav lahachris, then indeed you do need to make an announcement because the number of them is a sign. My bade, what it said, bade mechatim tzinoros, the bottom of needles and forks. What are badim? So the Gemara says, "Badim are shochei." These are branches of the tree. So meaning these are branches of a tree that are holding needles or forks. So my karle bade the davar talube the davar the talube midi. It's something which people hang something on. It is bad karle. It's called a bad. How do we know this? Yahuda Tanan. Yehuda Amrinan Hasan, because that's like we said over there. That what is the branch that we use on Hoshana Rabbah? That this was one weave on one branch, and so therefore and so that's in Masechah Sukkah by the willows that most of the leaves have fallen off. So we just need one branch on one leaf on one branch is going to be kosher for Hoshana Rabbah for those willows. So and so too, the Brisa says, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar would say, if somebody saves something from a lion or from a bear or from a leopard or from a bardoas, which is a hyena, or minzuto shayam, or from the sea, mishlulisu shalnar, or from the banks of the river, then you can keep it. Hamotzi b'saratia uplatia kedola kol makom sharabim mitzuyin sham. But let's say you find it in the Saratia, which is basically a major street, or Palatio, like a major courtyard, or any place where there are a lot of people there, then you could keep it because clearly the owners have given up hope. Yibahu, the Gemara asks the question, Kikam Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, when Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says that if you find it in a place where a lot of people are, you could keep it. Is that talking about a case Berov Canaan, where most of the people are Canaanites? Well, Berov Yisrael, but when most of the people are Jewish, you can keep it. Odima feel Berov Yisrael Nami, or maybe even most of the Jews, you can keep it. And Amar Imtim Sil Amar feel Berov Yisrael Nami, even if the majority of the Jews are there, you can keep it. So then we say under those circumstances, pligi rabbanan aleh. So even if the majority are Jews, do the rabbis argue with them? Oh, pligi, or do they not argue? Vim tim salomar pligi berov Yisrael vade pligi. That do they say they argue? Or it's certainly the majority of the Jews they argue, but berov kananim im tim salomar berov Yisrael vade pligi berov kananim pligi oh pligi. So and now we want to say if you are going to say that they argue berov Yisrael vade pligi, do they argue in a situation where it's the majority of our Jews, but Barov Canaanim, Pligi or low Pligi, but if it's the majority of the Canaanites, do they argue, or maybe they don't argue? And there they accept, or Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar said that you could keep it in the majority of Canaanites. Imtim Somer Pligi, I feel Barov Canaanim. And if you want to say they argue even where it's the majority of Canaanim, halacha kamoso in halacha kamoso. Is the law like Rav Shimon ben Elazar or not? And imtim somer kamoso dafka barov Canaanim or fil barov Yisrael. Is it only like him specifically where it's Rov Canaanim or even where it's Rov Yisrael? So they have these series of questions that we're asking about Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. So the Gemara says, "Tashma motze mos but the knesses but the midrashos become makom sharav mitzvim shemarel shalom neshabal misyashim." So we learned in the price, so that it says that if you find money in the synagogue or the base medrash or any place where there's a lot of people found, you could keep it because the owners give up hope. Man Shamaslay the Azal Basaruba. Who's the one who says we follow the majority? This is Reb Shimon ben Elazar. And he says, Shmas, we know, we learn from here, Afilu Barov Yisrael Nami. Then even where it's the majority are Jews, you can keep it. The Gemara says, no, no, where the money is scattered. So the Gemara says, even Fuzar, and if you're talking about a case where the money is scattered, and that's why you keep it. Then why does it have to be specifically where there are a lot of people? I feel ain't a lot of even if there's not a lot of people. So the Gemara says, so we're saying it's not scattered, it is piled up, they're bundled together. So we're talking about here that these are the Bate Kinesios of the gathering place. It's not a synagogue, but it's the gathering places where the Canaanites go. And Bate Midrashos might call them. Okay, so you could say that that Bate Kines is not a synagogue, but it's a place where the Canaanites just gather together. That's what Rashi says. But Rashi says Diyasu Bakananim, and they're outside of the city, and the excuse me, Kinesios Asifos Makom Shem Iskansim Sham Yaitz. That's where the Canaanites go to have their meetings. So what would you say about the base medrash? So the Gemara says, Bate Midrashos, the Don, the Yasu Lo Kahanim. No, the Canaanites are sitting there. It's our base medrash, but the Canaanites are sitting there. And they're there as the security guards, Rashi says. Well, so the Gemara says, well, now that we've established that, okay, so we can talk about our synagogues where the Canaanites there are just to watch it. So the Gemara says, okay, then we're trying to prove this case. Tashma Matzah Veda. Once you find the lost object, in Rov Yisrael, the majority of the people are Jewish. Then you need to make a proclamation. In Rov Canaanim, if the majority of the people are Canaanites, then you don't have to make a proclamation. Who's the one who says we follow the majority? Reb Shimon ben Elazar. And so we see from here that Shmas Minaki come Reb Shimon ben Elazar, Barov Canaanim. When does Reb Shimon ben Elazar say you could keep it? When it's majority Canaanites of Barov Yisrael. But if it's the majority or Jews, well, you can't keep it. So the Gemara says, no, Hamani Rabbanan He. No, this is the position of the rabbis. Well, if that's the case, Tivsha Minei Demodele Rabbanon Shemeno Azabarov Kananim. That's the case. Learn from here that the Rabbanan agree with Rabbi Shimon Elazar in a situation where the majority of the Canaanites, meaning to say that the rabbis at least resolve that question, where it's the majority of the Canaanites, you could keep it, even according to the rabbis. Gemara says, Rabbi Shimon Elazar he. No, it must be that this is Rabbi Shimon Elazar, and he says, even where it's the majority are Jews, you could keep it. No, we're talking about a case, why can you keep it? Where it was hidden. And so since it's not hidden, it's not lost. And therefore, if it's the majority of the Jews, you have to make the proclamation. Gemara says, Maya Vidasa Gabe. So the Gemara says, well, if it's actually Tamon, if it's really hidden, then why does he take it? He should just leave it where it is. He sees it's hidden. If you find a utensil in a trash that's covered up, well, Yigabo, don't touch it. The guy obviously put it there and he's coming back from it. Megula, if it's uncovered, no tolmachers. You have to take it and mention it. So the Gemara says, no, it was a trash. It was talking about a trash that was initially not intended to be taken out, but now the person who kept his trash decided to clear it away. And Hachinami, that's what we're going to talk about also. No, it's so now he decides to take away the trash. I don't know if you want to say, you could say that this is the position of the Rabbanan, and it's not hidden down, but don't learn out from here. Nevertheless, don't learn from here that the Rabbanan agree with Rabbi Shimon Elazar that you can keep it if it's Rov Canaanites, if it's majority Canaanites, because Mikatani Hain Shelo doesn't say he could keep them. Eno Chayav Lahacharis Katani. It says he's not required to mention it. So what does he do? He should put it to the side, and then when a Jew comes and brings a simon, then the Jew could take it. So the Gemara says we're still trying to understand what Shimon Elazar is saying. Let's say you find the barrel of wine in the city where it's majority Canaanites. Mutaros, you could keep the barrel, Bava Metzia. because you could keep the barrel. Vasura bahanav. But nevertheless, you can't get any benefit from it because we assume it's the Canaanites and he made it yayin nesach, he made it prohibited wine. So then if the Jew comes along and gives a sign on it, then whoever found it can now drink it. So come on. So we see from here, come on, Rebbe Shimon ben Eliezer. This is like the Rebbe Shimon ben Eliezer who says that if there's majority of the Canaanites, you could keep it. You could keep it. Once Shmas Mina, we learn from here, Kikam Rebbe Shimon ben Eliezer, Barov Kananim. He always says it's all by Canaanites. So Barov Yisrael, low, but majority Jews, he doesn't say it. Where it says, no, and no, he says it's position even in the majority of Jews, but Rav Asi only holds by the Canaanites, but not by majority Jews. So we don't know that this is really what Rav Shimon ben Eliezer says. Kumar says, well, since we're not allowed to get any benefit, why do you say it's permitted to him as part of a lost object? He can't use it. So Mar says, Amarvashi likankana, meaning to say the wine is prohibited to have benefit from it, but you can use the container as part of the halacha of yayin nesach. Hahu gavra, there was a man, the ashkach arba zuze, he found 4 zuzim. Ditzairi bisadina, they were tied up in a handkerchief. Vishadu binahar biran, and they were thrown into the Biran river. Excuse me. Also coming to Rav Yehuda, they came to Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says, you found it, you have to make an announcement. But why? It's in the sea. Where it says, Shani Nar Biran, Kivan to Miskal, no, the Nar Biran is different because since there are things that are going to catch the handkerchief, he doesn't give up. Where it says, Varuva Kananim Ninu, but the majority of the people there are Canaanites. Shmamina in Allah, Rabbi Shimon ben Eliezer. We learn from here the law is not like Rabbi Shimon ben Eliezer. If there's a majority Canaanites, you still can't keep it. I feel barov Kananim. The Gemara says, no, Shani Narbira, no, this river is different. The Yisrael Sachrulo, the Yisrael Karlo, Jews dam it up and Jews dig it. And keeping the Yisrael Sachrulo, Emer Yisrael Nafal. He'll say, oh, since the Jews dam it, maybe it fell from a Jew. The keeping the Yisrael Karlo, and since Jews dig it up, Lo Miyayish, the owner is not going to give up hope. Rabbi Yehuda was following behind Shmuel, Beshuka de Daisa, in the market where they sell dices like porridge. Amrle Matzah Kan Arnaki. So Rabbi Yehuda pesters. He asked Shmuel a question. Says, if somebody found a Arnaki here, a wallet, can he keep it? Amrle Arel Shlosh. Shmuel says, keep it. He said, let's say the Jew comes and gives him a mark on it. Amrle Chayv Officer. Then he has to return it. So the Gemara asks the obvious question: Tarati, can they be true? Can they both be true? So Shmuel says, he has to return it only because he wants to go beyond the letter of the law. By the letter of the law, he doesn't have to return it, but beyond the letter of the law, he does. Like the father of Shmuel, he found donkeys in the wilderness, and he returned them to their master even after 12 months, and he did this beyond the letter of the law. So Gemara says, Rava So Rava was following after Rav Nachman in the marketplace of the leather workers. Some say the market of the rabbis. What if you find a wallet here? So Rav Nachman said, you could keep it. Let's say a Jew gives a sign. He says, still, the guy can keep it. Because but he's standing there shouting. Mara says, it's like you're shouting about your house that's falling in the sea, or your ship falling in the sea, or a house that's falling. Your shouting is useless. There was a dio, is a type of bird, like a vulture, deshakal bisra beshuka. It took some meat from the marketplace. Bishadia bitzinaisa the bay Bar Marion, and he threw it in between the palm trees of Bar Marion. Also, Kami da Abaye came before Abaye, Amrle, Zil Shakol and Avshecha. He said, so he came to Bar Abaye, and Abaye said, go take it for yourself. But why? Are most of these people Jewish? Shmas Mina, we learn from here. Allah Rabbi Shimon ben Eliezer. Don't we learn from here the laws like Rabbi Shimon ben Eliezer? I feel Barov Yisrael. that even where the majority of the people are Jewish, the laws like Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. The Gemara says no. Shani Dio, no. The case of the vultures are different because the kazuta shel yam dami, because it's like if it was out at the sea. We have a different problem. It's meat that disappeared from the eye; it should be prohibited. So the Gemara says, "Ba'omed v'roeo." No, he stands and sees it the whole time. Reb Chanina found a goat that was slaughtered between Tiberias and Tzipori, and they allowed him to eat it. Amar Rabbi Ami Yitiru Mishum Metzia. He said, they said, Rabbi Shimon Elazar. They allowed him to keep it, even though it was a found object like Rabbi Shimon Elazar. And Mishum Shchita, because the slaughter, Rabbi Chananya Benosha Rabbi Yossi Aglu. The Tanan, like we learned, if he lost his goats and chickens, he finds them slaughtered. Rabbi Yehuda says it's oser, it's prohibited. Rabbi Yosef says it's matir. And I'm a Rabbi near and Rabbi Yehuda k'shematzim asper. I agree with Rabbi Yehuda, it's prohibited when you find them in the trash. When you find them in the house. So from the fact from the fact that they allow it because it was slaughtered, we see Reuben and it must be the majority of the people are Jewish. I feel Barav Yisrael when the majority are Jewish. Gemara says, no, I'm a Rava, Rov Canaanim. No, the majority are Canaanites. Rov Tabacha Yisrael. And the majority of the butchers were Jewish. So the majority of the people were Canaanim, but the majority of the butchers were Jewish. That's why you can eat it. Rabbi Ami Ashkach Pargio Shchutos Ben Tiberio Tzipori. Rabbi Ami found slaughtered pigeons between Tiberias and Tzipori. Also coming to Rabbi Asi, I'm coming to Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Midrasha. He said you could keep it. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha Ashkach Kibura, he found like yarn that they use for making nets, strings. Also coming to Rabbi Yochanan, go and keep it for yourself. This is the beautiful daf. That's today's daf, and everybody should have a shkoyach, a good Shabbos, a Freilich and Purim.